What do you get when you bring together 45 established and up-and-coming leaders in medical marketing for a day of insightful programming and a well-deserved celebration? You get the MM+M Women of Distinction and Women to Watch programs. Now in its 11th year, Women of Distinction and Women to Watch platform some of the most accomplished, effective women leaders in the industry, as well as those who are on the come-up and have already made their impact felt. It's an opportunity for natural, meaningful conversations, networking and mentorship, as well as reflection on the steadfast determination of women executives who continue to impact healthcare through research, marketing, and media. These programs will be hosted on Wednesday, June 3rd at our ceremony at Chelsea Piers in New York City. To preview the day-long ceremony, we're joined by one of our esteemed honorees. This week, reporter Bella Jakowski brings us a conversation with Chumi Khurana, the SVP of U.S. Oncology at Jazz Pharmaceuticals. She talks about her career arc, her work in an ascendant, mid-sized drug maker, and what lessons she's learned along the way. And for our trend segment, we're joined by pharma editor Lesha Bushek, who brings us key insights from her coverage of the ASCO annual meeting in Chicago.
Chumi, thank you so much for joining me today, and congrats on being an honoree this year for Women of Distinction. So you are the Senior Vice President of Oncology Franchise Head at Jazz Pharmaceuticals. I'd love to talk a little bit about how you got into biopharma and more specifically oncology.
Yeah, thank you, Bella, for having me. And it really is an honor to receive this award and looking forward to chatting with you today. Yeah, my passion for healthcare really started early. I grew up in a household where my dad was a doctor. He's retired now. And what I really love most about healthcare marketing today is the chance to blend that early inspiration with strategy and truly helping ensure scientific advances make a difference for patients. So I actually grew up in Germany and went to business school there. And I came to the U.S. to do my MBA and went the business school route, but always just loved science. And entering into the biopharma industry was just a phenomenal opportunity for me to blend both my business training with my early upbringing and the science. And it's just been incredible to see the progress that we've made in the biopharma scientific industry. Much of my career has been in oncology, more than 20 years. And when I started out in oncology, it really was chemotherapies, really toxic drugs and solutions, and not much talk about cure. And if I look how far we've come, when we have survival rates of 15 plus years and so much innovation, it is just a phenomenal place to be, and I'm very excited to play a part in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you spent a good number of years at both BMS and J&J, if I'm remembering correctly. Can you talk a little bit about how those positions, those companies sort of queued you up or set you up to your current role at Jazz?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful, wonderful training experience and learning experience for me working at those companies. I actually worked for GSK for a little bit of a shorter time too. I was at BMS for 14 years, and really what I took away from BMS at that time is there was a very strong focus on marketing excellence. The organization actually invested in marketers. And at that point of my career, I was starting out in marketing. We had a phenomenal training system where we really learned the ABCs of how do you gain insights on the customers, how do you create messaging, how do you create positioning, and then how do you bring that to market in a way that is understandable for the customer. So that is really where I received what I would call my marketing training. And oftentimes people will say that I'm a strategic marketer, and I really credit BMS's marketing excellence program and focus on that for that. But I will say what I gained at J&J was more breadth. Because at J&J, there was really a focus on not just functional expertise in one spot of marketing, but also how do you get breadth of market access, how do you get breadth understanding the patient, right? The overall enterprise learning. And that's really what I got at J&J. I was very fortunate that every time I joined an organization, I was part of a build of the organization, a build of either a disease state or capabilities or teams. And I think being part of builds really trains you to take a step back and think about, what do you need in the industry? Where are we as an industry? What does the customer need? And then how can we succeed? So those are the things that I really was able to gain from my experiences. And I will say, a lot of younger professionals will ask me about, leaving a company and going to another company. It is always wonderful to build relationships at a company and really learn, but also the opportunity to go to different kind of companies. You learn a lot. You're able to learn from that culture. And then as you move along, you're also able to reinvent yourself and take the things that you've learned from the past with you, but then also maybe reinvent the things that you want to do differently. So at Jazz now, Jazz is a much smaller company than the companies that I work for, and that was a conscious choice I made. We're a mid-sized company, really focused on rare disease. And I have to check myself sometimes because you don't want to bring everything from a very large company with you. But I think what I am able to bring with me is the experiences to say, how do we, in a much, more contained marketplace and a smaller, disease area, how do we stay competitive? How do we learn? How do we drive insights and really do the best we can to improve patient outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see where, you picked up experience and you're talking about being able to translate things that you've learned and, across organization sizes and whatnot. I'm sure that just that tidbit right there is really helpful for anyone listening who, is maybe earlier in their career trying to navigate changes and transitions and stuff like that. Can you talk to me a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like at Jazz?
Yeah, it's definitely very busy. Mm-hmm. So I lead a team of close to 300 people. We have 3 disease areas in oncology at Jazz. We have our solid tumor team, which has lung cancer as well as gastric cancers. We have a hematology team, and then we also have a neuro-oncology team. So I lead a team that's comprised of people that are in the field, people that are marketers. I also have responsibility for medical as well as market access. And so a lot of my day-to-day is about bringing that cross-functional team together to ensure that we bring the science that we've worked on so hard to patients, to customers in the right way. Currently, we're very, very focused on optimizing the customer experience. I think all of us can realize and understand that today's customers, in many cases for us, it is the treating physicians and nurses and pharmacists, etc., are incredibly busy. I cannot remember a time where there's been this much information and this many products, especially in oncology with all of the innovation. So I think what we're focused on a day-to-day is figuring out what is the best way to educate and to really make sure that we get the information out there to improve patient outcomes and relationships with our customers. So that is really my day-to-day. It involves a lot of traveling. It involves talking to internal teams, but also to a lot of external stakeholders. And I think that that's very, very critical that we do that. And at Jazz, we're actually completely remote. It is a wonderful culture and a wonderful approach because it allows me to have a team that's very diverse and that lives all over the U.S. And it's been great because I've been able to source really great talent from all over the country. But then when we come together, there's a lot of focus, a lot of passion, and a lot of fun. And that's how we get things done.
Maybe a good segue to talk a little bit about what projects or things you're most proud of over the course of your career, maybe at Jazz or otherwise.
Yeah, there's been so many phenomenal projects. But honestly, Bella, for me, with my role, what it comes down to is two things. One is the products that I've worked on. They're projects in itself, right? I have been part of some incredible breakthrough treatments. And so when you say projects, it's everything that we did to bring these drugs to market, drugs like Yervoy, drugs like Opdivo, drugs like Imbruvica. And most recently now, I'm working on a drug in gastric cancer. So I think those projects where we're literally changing the trajectory of human health, I couldn't be more proud to have had even a small part of that. And then I think the other, I don't want to call it project, but the other thing that I'm incredibly proud of is all the people that I've worked with and, the teams that I've built and the mentorship relationships I've had. And, I really love to pay it forward. It goes both ways. People that have supported me, and I have incredible people that have supported me and continue to do so over my 20 plus years of being in the industry, but then also the opportunities I've had to pay that forward. When I see junior marketers, junior commercial leaders that I've known for a very long time now leading teams and doing phenomenal things, those are the moments that make me really proud. Because at the end of the day, there's products, there's projects, but without the people, it doesn't happen. And I think building teams and cultures where people thrive and really have fun and give their best, that's what I'm most proud of.
And you're making me think of a panel actually at the event Wednesday that I'm moderating, which is about, what experience and mentorship teaches that maybe, titles or traditional like career advancement as we think about it doesn't, which is just, the ability, like, I think it really gets at what you're talking about, which is the culture and, people that have built really successful teams and helped more junior people sort of rise through the ranks and the impact of that. So that'll be just a little shout out there to that panel. I'm excited for.
Yeah, me too.
And speaking of the event and this honor more specifically, can you just talk a little bit about what it means to be listed as an honoree this year?
Yeah, thank you, Bella. I really very humbly super just inspired by the fact that I was nominated and chosen. It means a lot to me in terms of the dedication that I've had towards my roles and to be with, honestly, the other women that are there too. So that's a big part of it for me. I think it's so incredibly important that we all lift each other up and that we celebrate each other. And in this industry, we're so busy on a day-to-day basis. So to just be able to take a moment, celebrate my successes, but then also the other women will be great. I do have a table of 10 jazzicians, as we call each other, joining me. They're a group of people from all different functions that are going to come along. So I'm also really looking forward to that because, again, just to take a moment to celebrate, but then also I was looking at the agenda and there's going to be really great discussions around, how do we get stronger? And I think, again, every day we work hard, but sometimes we have to fill our kind of, basket with learning and celebration. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
I think that's really well said. Yeah, it's going to be my first Women of Distinction. I only joined the team a few months ago, but from what I hear, it's like one of the events that folks most look forward to.
That's great.
Like being able to gather with even your team specifically.
Yeah.
That energy and that culture on display is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if I can ask you one last question here, sort of take this any way you want, but what are you most excited for in your career and the industry moving forward, in the next handful of years?
Yeah, so much, Bella. I look forward and I hope my professional and personal lives continue to blur in the best possible way. I'm deeply ambitious about my work, and I really want to continue leading at a high level, shaping strategy, building teams, and making meaningful impact in the healthcare arena. The idea that my work can help improve lives still motivates me every day. At the same time, success for me is not defined by title alone. You said it. It is about being present for my family, contributing to the community that I live in, and also feeling fulfilled and happy in how I spend my time. I love work, but it doesn't define me. And I want to complement a life that feels rich, balanced, and purposeful. So ultimately, in the future, I want to look back and feel proud, not just of what I've achieved professionally, but how I've showed up for the people and causes that matter to me most. So that's how I would see the future.
That's what's on the horizon. It sounds like more of the same, more of what you've been doing in all of these years of a great career. So thank you again so much for joining me. And we'll be really excited to see you on Wednesday and to celebrate you on Wednesday.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you.
All right, this is the part of the show where the edit staff huddles and we talk about what we're working on this week. And the big thing we're working on, of course, is the Agency 100, but that's in the home stretch. But more interestingly at this point, I think, is the fact that Lesha Bushak, our pharma editor, is covering ASCO. She's been in Chicago all weekend covering the cancer conference, which is absolutely huge. And oddly enough, this is the first time that we've had a reporter there. Lesha, what's it like? What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so as you said, this is my first time at ASCO. And my two main takeaways, one is on the marketing side and one is on the sort of science breakthrough side. But on the marketing side, I'm just totally taken aback at how massive pharma brand's presence is here. If you walk the exhibit floor, you have pretty much every single major pharma company. They have these massive city block wide booths that are built out, really hoping to draw attention to their oncology pipelines and products. And each of the brands takes their own approach to it. And so on the marketing side, I'm really sort of just in awe of how much pharma has been investing in being present at an ASCO. And I also just spoke with Gail Horwood, who is Chief Marketing Officer at Novartis. And she said that the biggest trend in pharma marketing at ASCO is really that pharma has doubled down on being at ASCO. I think there was some concern during COVID when things went virtual, that there wouldn't really be a return to sort of this in-person conference stuff with marketers going in person. But she said instead of there being a retreat, there really has been a doubling down, and you're really seeing that play out on the exhibit floor. And I would say the other major headline from the more science data readout side of things, you might have seen some of the headlines come out on other news sites already, but there was a pancreatic cancer readout in sort of the main plenary session yesterday afternoon that received a standing ovation because the data was so promising. It's out of a small biotech called Revolution Medicines. So it was interesting to kind of see this smaller biotech really steal the show at ASCO this year. And I can kind of go into all that later, but.
Well, no, let's go into it now because pancreatic cancer has, long been the scourge of cancer, the one of the toughest nuts in oncology to crack.
Yeah.
I had written last fall about how cancer needs a rebrand because it's no longer a death sentence with 5-year survival rates now in the 70s. But pancreatic cancer has always been the outlier in that. What has happened that's allowed this breakthrough?
Yeah. So there is a protein called RAS, R-A-S, that was previously considered like an undruggable target in cancer. But Revolution's Medicines has developed a drug that targets that exact mutation, which is present in 90% of pancreatic cancer patients. And the drug, the data that they read out yesterday showed that it reduced the risk of death by 60%. And the fact that, the vast majority of patients have this mutation means that this drug could be available for a huge amount of pancreatic cancer patients, and it could really make a huge impact. And that session had a standing ovation yesterday. And from what I've heard from people, usually the best of the best sessions will have a standing ovation. Not every year has a standing ovation at ASCO, but this year that session received a standing ovation. So it really is a sign that could potentially be like a really breakthrough therapy. And I imagine it's probably going to get FDA approved soon, and it'll be interesting to watch Revolution Medicines, kind of this small biotech that doesn't have any approved products out yet, how they kind of go through with the pre-launch process and the launch process and kind of like enter the stage as sort of a breakthrough company.
Sounds like they might not even need to have a marketing plan with a therapy that sells itself. That's
true.
I've got one more question for you, and then let's hear from Bella. But my other question for you is this: you said that some of these booths are as wide as a city block or as long as a city block. What exactly is going on in a booth that size?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Times Square when you're walking through the whole exhibit area. When you first walk in, Merck is the main one. They've taken up the biggest spot, so they've clearly invested the most money in their presence at ASCO this year. And Merck, for example, has a huge globe at the center of their booth, where basically oncologists can go and kind of put into like a little interactive screen where they're from, and then it'll pop up on the globe. And then there's massive LED lights, sculptural pieces, installations, like movie theater sized TV screens. And they're all basically just playing campaign imagery and also a lot of like medical information about their different oncology products. So I did a walk, sort of a tour around yesterday, and there's one area called the Boulevard. So the Boulevard is kind of the main area where the biggest players have set their booths. And you'll see sort of like in Times Square, you'll see sort of like these LED lights and billboards and flashing lights and screens, all portraying like their main oncology products. So whatever products that they want to sort of be top of mind, that they think they want to have the most eye-grabbing visuals around, they'll put those kind of along the boulevard. So Keytruda was a big one on Merck because which I find interesting because Keytruda is, facing patent expiration in the next couple of years, and Merck, I think, is trying to find its footing given that in the oncology space. And what really kind of struck me with all of it is just how many options are now available in cancer that, in maybe 10 years ago, we never would have seen. There's just so many products and so many combination products now too. Antibody drug conjugates are a big thing. And I was just kind of like, it could take hours to walk through all of that and review all of the medical information about all of these products that are available. So I was just like very taken aback by all of it.
Sounds amazing. I've been hogging the microphone. Bella, you certainly must have some questions.
Yeah, my most pressing question, Lesha, is whether you've had Giordano's pizza yet.
No, I haven't. Is that deep dish?
It's deep dish. I was born in Chicago. I didn't spend a lot of time there, but when I go back now, my family is very, very, that and Portillo's staple in the culinary scene. But to ask you a more...
Giordano's.
Giordano's. To ask you a more relevant question for our audience, maybe. I'm curious whether you've seen or felt any. I mean, I know this is MM+M's first time having boots on the ground there, but just in light of all of the FDA scrutiny over promotion and marketing materials, whether you get the sense that brands, pharma marketers, and the brands themselves are at all sort of dialing back or being a little more conservative than they would in other years. And if you've had any conversations around that, just because, a lot of it, I assume there's a lot of digital media coming out of there. And as we've seen, the FDA will go after social content.
It's a really good question. And it's something I've been wondering while I've been here. And I would say there's definitely been no dialing back at all. If anything, they're going really hard. And it's interesting because historically, I think at a place like ASCO, the pharma booths would largely be a function of medical affairs. So rather than the promotional side of things. So, you would typically just have the pretty straightforward data and the science about their products provided to oncologists and less of the promotional advertising side of things. But now I was really seeing a blend of these things at every booth, and every pharma company takes their own approach depending on their regulatory team's kind of interpretation of regulations. And that was something I learned from speaking with marketers here. But some booths had more of a clear separation between their medical affairs side and their promotional side to make sure they're not like crossing any lines. And other ones were a little more, I guess, open to blending those two things together. So I certainly did not see any dialing back of kind of like marketing presence here. What is interesting to note is last year, apparently the FDA was supposed to be at ASCO and they didn't show up, which was sort of a sign of the times given a lot of the tumultuous stuff the FDA was going through last year. They were present this year. They had a tiny little booth all the way at the end in the back, and it's very easy to miss, and with like one person there. I asked to do an interview and they said no, but apparently from what I heard from marketers, there are actually FDA people who walk the floor at a place like this and try to like make sure that everything is in compliance and they don't wear badges. I don't know if that was the case this year, but I would imagine maybe that something like this would draw a little more scrutiny than in years past, given the FDA's stance on advertising. Although a lot of this, to be fair, is like directed towards HCPs, not necessarily DTC ads. So, but yeah, I did not see a dialing back at all.
It makes it, I'm picturing you like someone at the FDA table in the corner with like binoculars, like looking at the various posters, like doing live enforcement.
I'm sure if we keep our eye on the letter portal, we'll find out
exactly.
what fruit their trip to Chicago bore. Lesha, was there anything else that's striking to you about this? I mean, we all attend a lot of conferences. Is there something about this that makes it different from some of the other events we attend?
I mean, as someone who's gone to, DPE and Fierce Pharma in Philly and also Health in Vegas, I would say this was like my first super science heavy conference. But it was also the conference that has had the largest pharma presence in my mind. Because Health was more health tech focused and, DPE has a pharma presence, but it's more on the pharma marketing side. But here it was really like you could see how much it was sort of like a company-wide brand effort. Like they really wanted their brands sort of like above brand level company-wide brands to stand out. And it really is sort of like you can see how heavily competitive the oncology space is for pharma here. You really just saw that play out like in person and visually with all of the booths kind of competing against one another. So that was what really kind of stood out to me compared to some of the other conferences that I've been to. And the other interesting thing that, Steve, you might find interesting, maybe you've heard of as well, is this year there was some talk around how GLP-1s might potentially have sort of like a protective impact around cancer. And they're just starting to have that conversation around, can GLP-1s kind of inherently prevent cancer, or is it a sort of a situation where if you reduce obesity and you reduce diabetes risk, are you also potentially reducing cancer? So that's something that's starting to be a conversation and starting to be explored.
Boy, GLP-1s are the gift that keep giving, at least from a writer's perspective.
For sure.
One final question from me, Lesha, is, for a pharma marketer, how important do you think it would be to actually attend ASCO?
I mean, I think it's important because, again, you really get to see what your competitors are doing here, and you also get sort of face-to-face with oncologists. Like I think the attendance was like 40,000 people. So this really is a chance for pharma marketers to have those like in-person, face-to-face interactions with oncologists from literally around the world. And really sort of it's a place for them to blend data and storytelling in front of an HCP in person in ways maybe they aren't able to in day-to-day otherwise. So I think it's definitely a place that has drawn a lot of pharma marketers, and it seems like it will continue to, because this seems to be like a growing investment on pharma side.
Lesha's got a very busy week coming up. She's at ASCO. She's coming back to New York and will be moderating panels. I think the main one, right?
The keynote, yeah.
Keynote on Wednesday at our Women of Distinction event, for which tickets are still available. Lesha, thank you so much for taking time out. I know how busy it is covering a conference. Lesha Bushak, MM+M's pharma editor, our boots on the ground at ASCO. Safe travels home.
Thanks.
The MM+M podcast is produced by our editorial staff, Bella Jakowski, Lesha Bushak, Steve Madden, Jameson Fleming, and Jack O'Brien, with production and editing by Bill Fitzpatrick and Gordon Thaler. Listen to all episodes at mmm-online.com or wherever you get your podcasts.